I want you to close your eyes for just a moment and feel into this question. What would your life look like if every single obstacle standing between you and the wealth you deserve simply vanished? Not someday, not after years of struggle, but right now, in this sacred moment we're sharing together. I'm not speaking metaphorically. I'm speaking about the actual tangible barriers that have been blocking your cash flow, suffocating your opportunities, and keeping you trapped in cycles of limitation that were never truly yours to begin with. By the time we reach the 20-minute mark of this journey, your entire perception of what's possible will have undergone a seismic shift, because you're about to meet the most powerful force in the spiritual universe for removing obstacles. Lord Ganesha, the divine architect of clear pathways and the cosmic engineer who specializes in demolishing everything that stands between souls and their sacred prosperity. Here's what most people don't understand about abundance. The lack you're experiencing isn't a punishment, it isn't bad karma, and it certainly isn't evidence that you're unworthy. The scarcity you see in your bank account, the opportunities that slip through your fingers, the doors that seem perpetually locked, these are all symptoms of one root condition: obstacles. Invisible walls built from fear-based beliefs you inherited, energetic debris from past failures you haven't cleared, and vibrational blockages that formed the moment you accepted someone else's story about what you deserve. And here's the revelation that changes everything. You don't have to fight these obstacles, you don't have to earn your way past them, and you certainly don't have to wait for some external authority to grant you permission to dissolve them. You simply need to invoke the one consciousness that exists solely to remove them, and that consciousness has been waiting for you to call upon it since the moment you were born. My name is irrelevant, but my purpose is crystal clear. I am a channel for ancient wisdom that transforms modern lives, and I have witnessed firsthand what happens when someone aligns with Ganesha's obstacle-destroying frequency. I've seen debt evaporate, I've watched dream jobs materialize within 72 hours, and I have been present for the moment when someone who had been financially stuck for decades suddenly receives an unexpected windfall that defies all logical explanation. This isn't magic in the fairy tale sense. This is the physics of consciousness meeting divine will, and you are about to learn the exact invocation, the precise visualization, and the sacred mindset that turns you into a living magnet for the clearest, most abundant pathway you've ever walked. But I need you to understand something crucial before we go deeper. This prayer we're about to explore together isn't a passive recitation you mumble while distracted. This is an energetic key, a vibrational code that literally rewrites the electromagnetic signature of your reality. And it only works when you bring your full presence, your deepest intention, and your willingness to witness miracles that defy your current understanding of how money moves. So here's my promise to you. And I make this promise with absolute certainty because I have seen it proven in my own life and in the lives of countless others who have walked this path before you. If you stay with me for the entirety of this transmission, if you allow these words to penetrate not just your mind, but your heart and your cellular memory, you will leave this experience fundamentally changed. The obstacles that felt permanent will reveal themselves as temporary illusions. The scarcity that seemed like your destiny will expose itself as a costume you've been wearing that was never actually stitched to your skin. And the wealth that you've been chasing will begin chasing you instead. Because when the pathway is clear, abundance doesn't trickle, it floods. Are you ready to call upon the obstacle destroyer? Are you prepared to witness what your life becomes when nothing stands between you and your divine inheritance? Then take a deep breath, settle into this moment, and let's begin the most important invocation you may ever speak. Before we can invoke Ganesha's power, we must first understand who this consciousness truly is, because the version of Ganesha you've seen on temple walls and in spiritual bookstores is only a fraction of the truth. Ganesha is not a deity you worship from a distance, hoping he notices your small prayers among millions. Ganesha is a living frequency, an intelligent force woven into the fabric of creation itself, and his sole function, his cosmic assignment, is to identify obstacles and obliterate them so that divine will can flow unobstructed through the lives of those who call upon him. In the Vedic tradition, Ganesha is known as Vignaharta, which translates directly to the remover of obstacles. And this isn't a poetic title, it's a job description. Every molecule of his being is calibrated to detect resistance, to locate the energetic sludge clogging your manifestation channels, and to clear it with the precision of a master surgeon and the force of a cosmic bulldozer. What makes Ganesha uniquely powerful in the realm of wealth manifestation is this. He doesn't just remove obstacles after you've identified them. He removes obstacles you don't even know exist yet, the hidden sabotage patterns running in your subconscious, the ancestral vows of poverty you inherited 3 generations back, and the energetic contracts you signed with scarcity during moments of trauma when you were too young to understand what you were agreeing to. This is why so many people struggle with affirmations and vision boards. They're trying to build abundance on top of a foundation riddled with invisible cracks. And Ganesha is the only force I know that goes beneath the surface to repair the foundation itself. When you invoke him properly, you're not asking for money to show up despite your blocks. You're asking for the blocks to be surgically removed so that money has no choice but to show up. Because the pathway between you and infinite supply is finally gloriously clear. But here's where most spiritual teachings get Ganesha wrong, and this misunderstanding costs people years of unnecessary struggle. They present him as a gatekeeper, someone you need to appease or impress before you're granted access to blessings. That's a distortion born from hierarchical religious structures that want you to feel small. The truth is far more empowering. Ganesha is not guarding the gate to keep you out. He is the gate itself, and the moment you align with his frequency, the gate swings open automatically because you have become a vibrational match for clear passage. You don't beg Ganesha for permission. You partner with his energy, and together you dismantle every wall that was keeping your wealth locked away in some invisible vault. This shift in understanding, from supplication to collaboration, is what transforms this from a hopeful prayer into a guaranteed energetic transaction. Let me paint you a picture of how this works in the quantum field, because understanding the mechanics makes the magic real. Imagine your life as a river that's meant to carry golden water. This golden water represents financial resources, opportunities, clients, investments, everything that fuels material abundance. Now imagine that over the years, debris has fallen into this river. Boulders of limiting beliefs, branches of other people's skepticism, mud from traumatic financial experiences, and dams built by well-meaning but misguided advice that told you to play small and be grateful for crumbs. The water is still there, the source is still infinite, but the flow is choked to a trickle because the channel is obstructed. Ganesha is the divine force that enters your river and removes every single piece of debris, not by fighting against it, not by shaming you for allowing it to accumulate, but by transmuting it at the molecular level so that it simply ceases to exist as an obstacle and becomes fuel for your forward momentum instead. This is why the prayer we're about to explore together is so much more than words. It's a summoning, a vibrational agreement that you are done tolerating obstacles and ready to experience the full force of your unblocked potential. And I need you to hear this clearly. Ganesha responds to certainty, not desperation. When you call upon him from a place of, "Please help me because I'm broken," you're actually reinforcing the obstacle by identifying with it. But when you call upon him from a place of, "I am ready to claim my clear path, and I invoke your power to remove anything in my way," you're speaking the language of sovereignty, and sovereignty is the frequency that activates miracles. So as we move forward, I want you to shift your posture internally. You are not a beggar at Ganesha's feet. You are a co-creator standing beside him, pointing at the walls in your life and saying, "These don't belong here anymore. Let's take them down together." There's one more piece of Ganesha's identity you need to understand before we move into the prayer itself. And this piece is what makes him the ultimate ally for wealth manifestation specifically. Ganesha is the son of Shiva and Parvati. Shiva representing pure consciousness and destruction of illusion. Parvati representing material abundance and creative power. Ganesha is the perfect fusion of these energies, which means he holds the blueprint for dissolving illusions about scarcity while simultaneously magnetizing material wealth. He is both the destroyer and the attractor, the remover and the revealer. When you work with Ganesha, you're not just clearing space, you're clearing space with the full intention of filling it with divine supply. This dual action process is what makes his energy so efficient. Other spiritual practices might help you let go of limiting beliefs, and other rituals might help you attract money. But Ganesha does both simultaneously, and he does it faster than any other modality I've encountered because he understands that removal and reception are not two separate processes. They are one unified movement of energy returning to its natural state of flow. Now that you understand who Ganesha is and why his energy is the master key to wealth manifestation, we need to dive deep into the territory most people avoid, the actual obstacles themselves. Because here's the uncomfortable truth that the spiritual community doesn't always want to acknowledge. You can't remove what you won't recognize, and most of the barriers standing between you and riches are completely invisible to your conscious mind. They operate in the shadows of your psychology, in the inherited programming of your lineage, and in the energetic residue of every moment you've ever felt powerless around money. These obstacles are sophisticated, they're adaptive, and they've been running your financial reality on autopilot for so long that you've mistaken them for truth. But today, we're going to shine light into every dark corner, and we're going to name these barriers with such precision that Ganesha will have exact coordinates for their removal. The first category of obstacles are what I call the fear-based programs, and these are the beliefs you absorbed before you even had language to question them. Maybe you grew up hearing, "Money doesn't grow on trees," so many times that your nervous system now interprets abundance as dangerous or unrealistic. Maybe you watched a parent work themselves into exhaustion and learned that wealth requires sacrifice of joy, health, and presence. Maybe you witnessed financial betrayal, a bankruptcy, a foreclosure, a business partner who disappeared with the funds, and your subconscious concluded that trusting the flow of money is fundamentally unsafe. These programs are insidious because they don't announce themselves with flashing signs. They masquerade as common sense, as prudent caution, as just being realistic. But let me tell you what realism actually is. The universe is abundant beyond measure. Resources are infinite, and your birthright includes access to more than enough. Anything that contradicts this is not realism, it's programming, and programming can be deleted. The second obstacle that lives in almost everyone's field is what I call the ancestral money wound, and this one runs deeper than your personal lifetime. Your great-grandmother who survived the Depression by hoarding every penny and trusting no one. Your grandfather who lost everything in a failed farm and taught your father that dreaming big is foolish. Your mother's mother who stayed in a loveless marriage because she had no financial independence. All of these stories are encoded in your DNA, quite literally. Epigenetics has proven that trauma and survival strategies pass down through generations, and financial trauma is no exception. You might be unconsciously repeating patterns of scarcity, not because you're failing, but because you're being loyal to ancestors who believed that struggle was the price of survival. And here's the twist that changes everything. Those ancestors don't need you to keep suffering to honor them. What they need, what they're actually begging for from the other side, is for you to break the cycle and prove that a different reality is possible. When you clear your path to wealth, you're not just healing yourself, you're healing your entire lineage backward and forward in time. The third category of obstacles is what I call energetic debris, and this is the accumulated sludge from every failed attempt, every rejection, every time you put yourself out there financially and got shut down. Remember that business idea you launched with so much hope, only to watch it crumble? Remember that job you were certain you'd get, but they went with someone else? Remember that investment you made that tanked, or that loan you couldn't repay, or that humiliating moment when your card got declined in public? Each of these experiences left an energetic signature in your field, a little pocket of shame, disappointment, or fear that's still broadcasting a frequency of "it didn't work before, so why would it work now?" This debris doesn't just sit there passively, it actively repels opportunities because it creates a vibrational mismatch between you and success. It's like trying to magnetize gold while covered in mud. The gold can't stick because there's a barrier in the way. Ganesha specializes in clearing this debris, but you have to be willing to acknowledge it exists, to stop pretending you're over it when your nervous system is still flinching every time abundance gets close. Now let's talk about the obstacle that's hardest to see, because it's disguised as virtue, the martyr pattern. This is the deeply embedded belief that suffering makes you noble, that struggle proves your worth, and that if things come too easily, you haven't really earned them. This pattern often shows up in people who were praised as children for being responsible or mature beyond their years, which is code for you sacrificed your needs to take care of others. If you've ever felt guilty for spending money on yourself, if you've ever downplayed your success to make others comfortable, if you've ever rejected help because you should be able to do it alone, you're running the martyr pattern. And here's why this is such a powerful obstacle to wealth. Martyrs don't allow themselves to receive. They're too busy proving they don't need anything, too invested in the story of their own resilience to let the universe deliver ease. Ganesha can remove this pattern, but only if you're willing to admit that you've been addicted to the identity of the struggler, and that there's a version of you on the other side of this addiction who is wealthy, supported, and free. The fifth obstacle I see consistently in people who can't break through to higher levels of wealth is what I call the scarcity trance. And this is the hypnotic state you enter when you obsessively monitor lack. It's checking your bank account 17 times a day, hoping the number changed. It's calculating bills in your head during conversations, so you're never fully present. It's the low-grade anxiety that hums beneath everything you do, the constant scanning for threat, the inability to relax because some part of you believes that vigilance is what's keeping you afloat. The cruel irony is that the scarcity trance actually creates more scarcity because your attention is a creative force, and whatever you focus on expands. When you're locked in this trance, you're feeding energy to the exact reality you're trying to escape, and no amount of hustling or strategizing will break you free because the trance operates below the level of conscious action. You need an intervention from a higher frequency, and that's exactly what Ganesha provides, a jolt of obstacle-removing energy that snaps you out of the trance and reminds you that you are not your bank balance. You are the consciousness that creates bank balances. Let me share something that might make you uncomfortable, but it's essential you hear it. Sometimes the biggest obstacle to your wealth is your own identity. You've built an entire sense of self around being the broke one, the struggling artist, the person who's always figuring it out. You tell stories at dinner parties about your financial misadventures, and people laugh, and you get a hit of connection from shared struggle. You bond with friends over complaining about money, and it feels like solidarity, but it's actually a ritual, that reinforces scarcity. Your identity is invested in this narrative, and on some level becoming wealthy feels like betraying who you are, like you'd lose your authenticity or your edge or the empathy that comes from hardship. This is the obstacle that lives closest to your heart, and it's the one that requires the most compassion to remove, because you're not just releasing a belief, you're releasing a version of yourself that you've known for years. But here's the truth that will set you free. Your essence doesn't change when you become wealthy. You don't lose your depth, your creativity, or your soul. You simply gain resources to express those qualities at a level that was never available when you were stuck in survival mode. The final obstacle I want to name before we move into the prayer is the one that's hardest to admit, because it feels shameful. Part of you doesn't actually believe you deserve wealth. Not because you're a bad person, but because somewhere along the way you internalized the message that you're not special enough, not smart enough, not connected enough, not educated enough, not whatever enough to deserve the kind of abundance you see other people enjoying. This belief is a lie, but it's a lie that's been reinforced by 1,000 small moments: the teacher who overlooked you, the parent who compared you unfavorably to a sibling, the culture that worships certain types of success while dismissing yours. And because this belief lives in the basement of your psyche, you sabotage yourself in ways you don't even notice. You don't follow up on the opportunity. You undercharge for your services. You apologize for asking for what you need. You make yourself small so others don't feel threatened. And all of this is an obstacle, a wall between you and your riches. And it's the wall that Ganesha is most eager to destroy, because he knows something you've forgotten. Your worthiness is not up for debate. It's woven into the fact of your existence, and no story anyone told you, including the stories you told yourself, can change that fundamental truth. We've mapped the obstacles, we've named the walls, and now we stand at the threshold of the most powerful part of this entire transmission, the prayer itself. But before I give you the words, I need you to understand something critical about how sacred invocations actually work, because most people treat prayers like wish lists they're sending to some distant cosmic customer service department, and then they wonder why nothing changes. A true invocation is not a request, it's a vibrational alignment. When you speak the words I'm about to share with you, you are not asking Ganesha to maybe consider helping you if he has time. You are tuning your entire electromagnetic field to match the frequency of obstacle removal, and in that matching, the obstacles don't have permission to exist anymore. This is quantum mechanics meeting ancient wisdom, and it only works when you bring absolute presence and unshakable intention to every syllable you speak. The structure of this invocation follows a precise energetic architecture that has been tested across centuries, and every element serves a specific purpose. We begin with the acknowledgement, where you recognize Ganesha's power not as flattery, but as fact, because you cannot receive help from a force you don't acknowledge exists. Then we move into the declaration, where you state clearly and without apology what you are ready to release and what you are ready to receive, because clarity is the currency of manifestation. Next comes the visualization, where you don't just imagine the obstacles dissolving. You witness it happening in real time with such sensory detail that your nervous system cannot distinguish it from physical reality. Then we anchor with gratitude, thanking Ganesha before the evidence appears, because gratitude is the frequency that collapses the wave function and turns potential into matter. And finally, we seal with the commitment, where you promise to walk the clear path once it's revealed, because the universe doesn't clear obstacles for people who plan to stay stuck anyway. Here is the invocation, and I want you to read these words slowly, preferably out loud. And as you speak them, feel them resonating in your chest, your solar plexus, the base of your spine. Let them move through you like a river of liquid gold. Ganesha, Lord of beginnings, remover of all obstacles, I call upon your ancient and unstoppable power in this sacred moment. I acknowledge that you are the divine force that clears pathways, the cosmic intelligence that dissolves resistance, and the loving presence that desires my freedom more than I have desired it myself. I stand before you not as a beggar, but as a sovereign soul ready to claim the clear path that is my birthright. I invoke your energy now, and I feel your presence entering my field, scanning every corner of my consciousness for the barriers that have kept me separated from wealth, from abundance, from the divine supply that flows endlessly through this universe. I declare with absolute certainty that I am ready to release every obstacle standing between me and my riches. I release the fear-based programs that taught me scarcity was safer than abundance. I release the ancestral patterns of financial struggle that I inherited but never chose. I release the energetic debris from every past failure, every rejection, every moment I felt powerless around money. I release the martyr identity that made suffering feel noble. I release the scarcity trance that kept me hypnotized by lack. I release the unworthiness that whispered I was not enough to deserve wealth. Ganesha, I hand all of these obstacles to you now, and I trust your power to dissolve them completely, to transmute them into fuel for my forward momentum, to clear my path so thoroughly that abundance has no choice but to flood into my life. As I speak these words, I see with my inner vision the obstacles crumbling. I watch the walls of limitation crack and shatter. I feel the debris being swept from my river, and I witness the golden water beginning to flow faster, stronger, clearer than ever before. I see opportunities appearing on my path like lights illuminating a road I couldn't see in the darkness. I feel my nervous system relaxing, releasing its grip on survival mode and opening to receive. I sense the shift happening in dimensions beyond my understanding, and I trust that what is being rearranged in the quantum field will manifest in physical form with perfect timing. I thank you, Ganesha, for the obstacles you are removing right now, even before I see evidence in my external reality. I thank you for the clear path that is already mine, for the wealth that is already in motion toward me, for the divine supply that is already seeking the clearest channel, and that channel is me. I thank you for seeing my readiness, for honoring my intention, and for partnering with me in this sacred work of liberation. My gratitude is not conditional on outcomes. It is the foundation from which miracles grow. And finally, I commit to walking the path you clear for me. I commit to recognizing the opportunities you place before me and taking inspired action when they appear. I commit to trusting the flow even when my logical mind cannot yet see the full picture. I commit to maintaining my alignment with abundance, to protecting my energy from those who would pull me back into scarcity consciousness, and to becoming a living testament to your obstacle-removing power so that others may witness what is possible when they call upon you with sincere hearts. Ganesha, I seal this invocation with 3 deep breaths, and I release it into the universe with total faith, and so it is. Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Now let me tell you what happens in the invisible realms when you speak this invocation with genuine presence. The moment you acknowledge Ganesha's power, you open a portal between your consciousness and his frequency, and through that portal, information begins to flow. He scans your field, not judgmentally but diagnostically, identifying every energetic signature that's blocking your abundance. When you declare your readiness to release, you're giving him permission to act, because even divine forces respect free will. They cannot remove obstacles you're still clinging to for identity or safety. The visualization you perform is not fantasy, it's a blueprint you're handing to the universe, showing exactly what you want the end result to look like. And the universe is magnificent at following blueprints when they're rendered with clarity and emotion. Your gratitude before evidence is what the mystics call faith, but it's more than belief. It's a vibrational statement that the outcome is already real in a dimension you can't yet touch. And that statement pulls it into physical manifestation faster than doubt or waiting ever could. One question people always ask me is, how often should I speak this invocation? And my answer might surprise you. Quality matters infinitely more than quantity. Speaking this prayer once with your entire being engaged, your heart open, your intention laser-focused, your body relaxed and receptive, is worth more than speaking it 1,000 times while distracted or skeptical. That said, there is power in repetition when it's done consciously, because each time you speak these words, you're strengthening the neural pathways that connect you to Ganesha's frequency. You're training your nervous system to recognize the feeling of obstacles dissolving, and you're building momentum in the quantum field. My recommendation is this: speak the full invocation once a day for 21 days, ideally at the same time each day, so you create a ritual container and speak it like you mean it every single time. Don't let it become rote, don't let it become background noise. Treat it like the most important meeting of your day, because it is your meeting with the force that controls your access to wealth. There's one more element I need to teach you about working with this invocation, and it's the element that separates people who get results from people who just recite pretty words. After you speak the prayer, you must sit in silence for at least 5 minutes and pay attention to what arises. Sometimes you'll feel physical sensations, heat in your hands, tingling in your crown, a sudden release of tension you didn't know you were holding. Sometimes you'll receive intuitive hits, a memory that needs healing, a person you need to forgive, an action you need to take. Sometimes you'll experience emotions, grief for the years you spent blocked, rage at the systems that taught you scarcity, or joy so intense it brings tears because you're finally allowing yourself to hope again. Whatever arises, don't push it away and don't judge it. This is the debris coming up to be cleared. This is Ganesha's energy moving through your system and evicting everything that doesn't serve your highest wealth. Breathe through it, witness it, and let it pass. This silence after the invocation is where the real magic happens, where the energetic surgery is performed, and if you skip it, you're leaving the work half done. Speaking the invocation is the activation. But now we enter the realm of experiential transformation, where you don't just talk about obstacles dissolving, you witness it happening in the theater of your consciousness with such vivid clarity that your subconscious mind accepts it as accomplished fact. This is the dissolution practice, and it's designed to work in tandem with the prayer you just learned, creating a double helix of transformation that spirals through your energy field and rewrites your relationship with abundance at the cellular level. What I'm about to guide you through is not meditation in the passive sense, where you simply observe your thoughts floating by like clouds. This is active co-creation, where you step into the role of architect and demolition expert simultaneously, tearing down the old structures and making space for the golden palace of prosperity that's waiting to be built on the cleared ground. Before we begin the visualization itself, I need you to prepare your physical space and your energetic state, because the quality of your container determines the depth of your transformation. Find a place where you won't be interrupted for the next 15 to 20 minutes. Turn off your phone, close the door. Let the people you live with know that you're unavailable because you're doing sacred work. Sit in a position that's comfortable but alert. You want to be relaxed enough to drop into theta brainwave state, but not so relaxed that you fall asleep and miss the entire experience. Place your hands either on your knees with palms facing up in a receiving position, or place one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly to create a circuit of energy through your body. Close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths. In through your nose for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, out through your mouth for a count of 6. With each exhale, feel yourself dropping deeper into your body, leaving behind the mental chatter of your day and arriving fully in this present moment where miracles are born. Now, with your eyes still closed and your breathing settled into a natural rhythm, I want you to visualize yourself standing at the entrance of an ancient temple carved into the side of a mountain. This temple is dedicated to Ganesha, and the moment you see it in your mind's eye, you feel a recognition in your bones. You've been here before, perhaps in dreams, perhaps in other lifetimes, perhaps in the dimension where your soul planned this incarnation and knew it would need obstacle-removing assistance to fulfill its purpose. The entrance to the temple is massive, flanked by two stone elephants whose trunks are raised in blessing, and above the doorway you see the image of Ganesha himself, not as a statue, but as a living presence whose eyes seem to meet yours with a knowing that goes beyond words. You feel invited, you feel welcomed, and you step across the threshold into the cool darkness of the temple's interior. As your eyes adjust to the dim light inside, you notice that the temple is not empty. It's filled with objects, and as you look closer, you realize these objects are physical representations of your obstacles. You see boulders with labels written in golden script: fear of never having enough, belief that wealth corrupts, shame about wanting more than you currently have. You see chains wrapped around pillars, and each link in the chain represents a limiting story you were told by someone who loved you but didn't know any better. You see mirrors covered in dust, and when you wipe the dust away, you see reflections of all the times you played small, all the opportunities you didn't take because you convinced yourself you weren't ready. You see a river running through the center of the temple, but it's clogged with debris. Broken contracts from failed ventures, rejection letters from jobs you didn't get, bank statements from months when you couldn't pay your bills. This is your inner landscape made visible, and while it might feel overwhelming to see it all at once, I need you to understand something crucial. These obstacles only have power because they've been hidden in the shadows of your unconscious. Now that they're visible, now that they're named and seen, they're already half dissolved. You stand in the center of this temple, surrounded by your obstacles, and you call out in a voice that echoes off the ancient stone walls, "Ganesha, I am ready. Show me your power." And in that moment, you feel a shift in the air, a presence entering the space that's simultaneously gentle and utterly unstoppable. You turn toward the back of the temple, and there he is, not a small statue, but a massive, radiant being of pure energy in the form of Ganesha, his elephant head crowned with light, his forearms extended in gestures of blessing and protection. His eyes meet yours, and in that gaze you feel seen in a way you've never been seen before, not judged, not measured, just absolutely recognized for who you truly are beneath all the stories and struggles. He speaks, and his voice resonates through your entire body. "I have been waiting for you to call me. I have been ready to clear your path since before you knew you had a path to clear. Watch now and remember what you witness, because this is not happening only in vision. This is happening in every dimension simultaneously." Ganesha raises one of his hands, and from his palm emanates a light so bright and pure that it makes the sun look dim by comparison. This light begins to move through the temple, and everywhere it touches, obstacles dissolve. You watch as the boulders of limiting belief begin to crack, fissures of golden light running through them like lightning through stone, and then they shatter into dust that's immediately absorbed by the light and transmuted into energy that feeds the temple itself. You watch as the chains of inherited programming heat up, glowing red and then white hot, and then they simply melt, the metal turning to liquid that flows into the ground and disappears as if it never existed. You watch as the mirrors that showed you your small self begin to clear, the images of limitation fading away and being replaced by reflections of your highest potential. You see yourself successful, radiant, abundant, free. And as each obstacle dissolves, you feel a corresponding shift in your physical body, a release of tension you didn't know you were carrying, a lightness spreading through your chest, a warmth blooming in your solar plexus where your personal power resides. But Ganesha is not finished. He moves toward the river clogged with debris, and he extends his trunk into the water, and you watch in awe as he begins to remove every single piece of wreckage, every failed attempt, every rejection, every humiliation, every moment of financial terror. He doesn't just remove them, he blesses them. He holds each piece in his light and shows you the lesson it carried, the strength it built, the compassion it cultivated, and then he releases it downstream where it's carried away to become nourishment for some other part of creation that can use it. As the river clears, you notice the water beginning to change color. It's turning gold, shimmering and luminous, and you understand that this is the river of abundance that's been trying to reach you all along but couldn't flow because the channel was blocked. Now it's flowing freely, and the sound it makes is like music, a frequency that resonates with prosperity, opportunity, and divine supply. Ganesha turns to you and says, "This river flows from an infinite source. It will never run dry. Your only job is to keep the channel clear, and I will help you do that for as long as you call upon me." You feel compelled to step into this river of golden water, and as you do, the sensation is beyond anything you've experienced in physical reality. The water is warm, alive, intelligent, and it begins to wash away every remaining trace of scarcity consciousness that's clinging to your energy field. You feel it cleansing your aura, scrubbing away the sticky residue of doubt, fear, and unworthiness. You feel it entering through your crown chakra and flowing down through every chakra in your body, clearing your third eye so you can see opportunities clearly, opening your throat so you can speak your value without apology, expanding your heart so you can receive without guilt, igniting your solar plexus so you can take empowered action, healing your sacral chakra so your creativity becomes a source of wealth, grounding into your root chakra so you feel safe in your body even as abundance increases. This golden water is liquid prosperity, and it's reprogramming every cell in your body to vibrate at the frequency of wealth. You stay in this river as long as you need to, soaking, receiving, allowing yourself to be completely transformed. When you finally step out of the river, you notice that your body feels different, lighter, more vibrant, almost glowing with an inner radiance that wasn't there before. Ganesha approaches you and places one of his hands on your head in blessing, and you feel a download of information flooding into your consciousness, not in words, but in knowing. You suddenly understand which actions to take, which people to connect with, which opportunities to say yes to, and which to gracefully decline. You understand your own value in a way that's unshakable, not because someone told you that you're worthy, but because you've experienced your worthiness as a fundamental truth of your existence. You understand that obstacles will still appear on your path. Life is dynamic, growth requires challenges, but now you have a direct line to the force that specializes in removing them, and more importantly, you've witnessed your own power to co-create with that force. You are no longer a victim of circumstances, you are a conscious architect of your reality. Ganesha speaks one final time before you leave the temple. Remember this feeling, remember what you witnessed here, and remember that this temple exists not just in vision, but in the eternal now, which means you can return here whenever you need to clear new obstacles or strengthen your alignment with abundance. You are never alone on this path. I'm always here, always ready, always available the moment you call my name. Now go, walk your clear path, and let your wealth become a blessing not just for you, but for everyone whose life you touch. You bow to him in gratitude, feeling the truth of his words settling into your bones, and you turn to walk back toward the entrance of the temple. As you cross the threshold and emerge back into the daylight, you take one deep breath and begin to bring your awareness back to your physical body, back to the room where you're sitting, back to the present moment. Wiggle your fingers and toes, roll your shoulders, and when you're ready, open your eyes. This visualization is not a one-time experience. It's a practice you can return to again and again, and I strongly recommend you do it at least once a week for the first month after learning the invocation, and then monthly after that as maintenance. Each time you journey to Ganesha's temple, you'll clear different layers of obstacles, because as you grow and evolve, new challenges appear that require new solutions. The beauty of this practice is that it's cumulative. Every time you witness obstacles dissolving in vision, you're creating neural pathways in your brain that make it easier to identify and release obstacles in waking life. You're training your consciousness to partner with Ganesha's energy automatically, so that eventually obstacle removal becomes your default setting rather than something you have to consciously work at. And here's the piece that makes this practice truly unstoppable. The more you do it, the more evidence you'll gather in physical reality that it's working. You'll notice synchronicities increasing. You'll find money showing up from unexpected sources. You'll watch doors opening that were locked just days before. And that evidence will fuel your faith, which will deepen your practice, which will generate more evidence, creating an upward spiral of manifestation that becomes self-sustaining. Here's what nobody tells you about working with Ganesha's obstacle-removing energy. The shifts don't always look the way you expect them to look. And if you're not educated on what to watch for, you might miss the evidence that your prayer is working and slip back into doubt before the full manifestation arrives. This chapter is about developing what I call clarity vision, the ability to recognize when obstacles are being removed, even when the removal looks like chaos, confusion, or temporary setbacks. Because here's the truth that will save you from giving up right before your breakthrough. Sometimes the clearing process gets messy before it gets clean, and that messiness is not a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that Ganesha is doing exactly what you asked him to do, which is demolish the structures that were keeping you small. The first clarity code is what I call the shake-up, and this is when aspects of your life that seemed stable suddenly become unstable. Maybe the job you've been tolerating for years suddenly becomes unbearable, and you find yourself in conflict with your boss or feeling physical symptoms of stress that force you to consider leaving. Maybe a friendship or romantic relationship that's been draining your energy finally reaches a breaking point, and you have to make a choice you've been avoiding. Maybe an investment you thought was secure suddenly looks risky, or a living situation you've been settling for suddenly feels completely wrong. Your logical mind will interpret this as things falling apart, as evidence that invoking Ganesha made your life worse, but your awakened consciousness knows better. These situations were always wrong for you. They were obstacles disguised as stability, keeping you tethered to a version of your life that couldn't accommodate the wealth you're calling in. Ganesha is shaking them loose so you can make new choices aligned with your abundant future. And yes, it's uncomfortable, but discomfort is the birth canal of transformation. The second clarity code is the revealing, and this is when hidden information suddenly comes to light. Maybe you discover that someone you trusted in business has been dishonest, and the revelation feels like betrayal, but actually, it's protection. Ganesha is showing you who not to partner with before you go deeper into collaboration. Maybe you uncover a limiting belief you didn't know you had, something so foundational to your self-concept that you never thought to question it. And now that it's visible, you can finally release it. Maybe you get clarity about a pattern you've been repeating for decades, always choosing relationships where you have to prove your worth, always taking jobs that undervalue you, always giving your energy away for free. And the clarity is painful because you see how much time you've lost, but it's also liberating because you can't change a pattern you can't see. The revealing always feels vulnerable, sometimes even humiliating, but it's Ganesha's gift because he knows that what's hidden in shadow has power over you, and what's brought into light can be transformed. The third clarity code is the pause, and this is perhaps the hardest one for people in Western culture to interpret correctly, because we've been programmed to believe that progress always looks like forward motion. The pause is when everything in your external life seems to slow down or even stop. Applications you submitted get no response. Clients you were counting on go silent. Money you expected doesn't arrive on schedule. Opportunities that seemed promising suddenly stall, and your fear mind immediately jumps to the conclusion that the universe is punishing you, that Ganesha didn't hear your prayer, that you're doing something wrong. But let me reframe this for you. The pause is not punishment, it's preparation. When Ganesha removes major obstacles from your path, he's creating space for something much bigger than what you originally asked for. And sometimes that bigger thing needs time to assemble in the quantum field before it can materialize in physical form. During the pause, your job is not to panic and force action out of desperation. Your job is to trust, to maintain your frequency, to continue your spiritual practices, and to prepare yourself internally for the flood that's coming. The fourth clarity code is the test. And this is when the universe checks to see if you've really released the old patterns or if you're still available to be pulled back into scarcity consciousness. The test often shows up as a tempting offer that looks like abundance, but actually requires you to compromise your values, your energy, or your vision. Maybe someone offers you money, but the project feels misaligned. Maybe a job opportunity appears that pays well, but would put you right back in the toxic environment you just escaped. Maybe a person from your past who represents old dynamics suddenly resurfaces, wanting to reconnect. These are not obstacles, they're discernment practices. Ganesha is asking, are you clear about what you truly want, or will you settle for the illusion of security because you're afraid the real thing won't come? Every time you pass the test by saying no to what's not aligned, even when saying no feels scary, you're proving to the universe that you're ready for the highest version of your abundance, and that proof accelerates the manifestation timeline dramatically. The fifth clarity code is the upgrade demand, and this is when you realize that stepping into greater wealth requires you to upgrade your skills, your systems, your boundaries, or your capacity. Maybe you've been praying for more clients, and suddenly you get an influx of inquiries, but you don't have systems in place to handle them efficiently, so you're forced to learn about automation or hire support. Maybe you've been praying for a financial breakthrough, and an opportunity appears that requires you to invest in education or equipment before you can seize it. Maybe you've been praying for respect in your industry, and you realize you need to upgrade how you present yourself, your website, your wardrobe, your communication style. The upgrade demand can feel frustrating because it seems like there's always one more hoop to jump through. But actually, this is Ganesha's way of ensuring that when the wealth arrives, you have the infrastructure to sustain it. He's not just removing obstacles to money, he's removing the obstacles to you becoming the version of yourself who can hold wealth without self-destructing. The sixth clarity code is the emotional purge. And this is when you find yourself crying for no apparent reason, or feeling waves of anger, or experiencing anxiety that doesn't seem connected to current circumstances. What's happening is that as Ganesha removes energetic obstacles, the emotions that were trapped inside those obstacles get released, and they have to move through your body on their way out. This is not a mental health crisis. This is an energetic detox. The grief you're feeling might be grief for the years you spent blocked. The anger might be righteous rage at the systems and people who taught you to stay small. The anxiety might be your nervous system recalibrating to a new frequency, where safety and abundance coexist, which is unfamiliar territory if you've lived in survival mode for most of your life. The worst thing you can do during the emotional purge is judge yourself or try to stuff the feelings back down. The best thing you can do is create space for them. Cry in the shower, scream in your car, punch a pillow, write unsent letters, move your body until you're exhausted. Let the emotions move through you and out of you, and trust that on the other side of this purge, you'll feel lighter and clearer than you have in years. The seventh and final clarity code is the synchronicity surge, and this is when you start noticing that the universe is speaking to you in unmistakable ways. You think of someone and they text you 5 minutes later. You need specific information, and a podcast discussing exactly that topic shows up in your feed. You're struggling with the decision, and a stranger on the street says something that gives you the answer. Numbers start following you. You see 11:11 on the clock. You get a receipt for 77.77. You notice addresses and phone numbers containing patterns that feel meaningful. These synchronicities are not coincidence. They're confirmation that you're in alignment with the flow of abundance, that Ganesha's energy is active in your life, and that you're on the right path even when the destination isn't visible yet. Pay attention to these signs, document them, celebrate them, because they're breadcrumbs showing you that magic is real and you're walking in it. And here's the key. The more you acknowledge synchronicities with gratitude and wonder, the more of them appear, because you're training your consciousness to recognize the language the universe uses to communicate with those who are awake. Now that you can recognize the signs of obstacles being removed, we need to talk about what happens when the path actually clears, because this is where most people stumble without even realizing it. They've done the prayer, they've witnessed the dissolution, they've passed the tests, and suddenly the universe opens up and abundance starts flowing toward them. But they don't know how to receive it because they've spent so long in scarcity mode that flow feels foreign, even dangerous. This chapter is about entering what I call the flow state, which is the energetic condition where you become a magnet for resources, opportunities, and synchronicities, not through effort or manipulation, but through alignment. And here's the paradox that changes everything. The flow state is not something you achieve through doing more. It's something you allow through being more, specifically through being the version of yourself who already has clear pathways and trusts the abundance that moves through them. The first principle of the flow state is what I call energetic receptivity. And this is the practice of keeping your field open even when your logical mind is screaming that it's not safe to do so. Most people walk through life with their energy field contracted, armor up, protecting themselves from disappointment by refusing to hope too much or want too openly. This contraction is understandable. It's a survival mechanism developed from past pain. But it's also the very thing that blocks the flow of abundance, because prosperity cannot enter a closed system. Imagine trying to fill a bottle with water while the cap is still on. Doesn't matter how much water is available, it can't get in. Your job, once Ganesha has cleared the obstacles, is to consciously choose to unscrew the cap, to soften your armor, to let your field expand into a state of receiving. And I'm not talking about naive optimism that ignores reality. I'm talking about mature trust that says, I've done my spiritual work, I've cleared my blocks, and now I will stay open to whatever abundance wants to flow through me, even if it arrives in forms I didn't anticipate. Practically speaking, energetic receptivity looks like saying yes when someone offers to help you, even if your independent streak wants to prove you can do it alone. It looks like accepting compliments without deflecting or diminishing them. It looks like allowing yourself to receive pleasure without guilt, whether that's enjoying a luxurious meal, buying yourself something beautiful without justifying the expense, or simply taking a nap in the middle of the day because your body asked for rest. Every time you receive without resistance, you're sending a signal to the universe that says, I am open, I am available, I can hold good things without sabotaging them. And the universe responds to that signal by sending more good things your way. Conversely, every time you block receiving, rejecting help, refusing gifts, insisting on struggle, you're confirming the old pattern that says you have to earn everything through suffering. And that pattern will keep recreating scarcity no matter how many obstacles Ganesha removes. The second principle of the flow state is inspired action. And this is where the spiritual meets the practical in a way that produces actual results in the material world. Too many people misunderstand the law of attraction and think that once they've set an intention and cleared their blocks, they can just sit back and wait for money to fall from the sky. That's not how manifestation works. What happens is that once your path is clear, you start receiving intuitive nudges, ideas that pop into your head, urges to reach out to certain people, impulses to take specific actions that don't make logical sense but feel right in your body. These nudges are how abundance communicates its arrival. They're the instructions for how to meet the opportunities that are moving toward you. Inspired action is different from desperate action. It doesn't come from fear or lack. It comes from alignment and excitement. It feels like play rather than work, like curiosity rather than obligation. And the key is to act on these nudges quickly, before your rational mind talks you out of them with all its very reasonable objections. Let me give you an example of what inspired action looks like in real time. You're sitting at your desk, and suddenly you think of someone you haven't spoken to in years, an old colleague, a former client, someone you met briefly at a conference. The thought comes out of nowhere, and it's accompanied by a gentle pull to reach out to them. Your logical mind immediately jumps in with objections. That would be random. They probably won't remember me. I don't want to seem desperate. But your body feels a yes, a warmth in your chest, an opening. That's inspired action calling. If you follow it, send the message, make the call, write the email, you might discover that this person was just thinking about you too. Or they have an opportunity they were about to offer someone, and you popped into their awareness at the exact right moment, or they know someone who needs exactly what you provide. This is how the flow state operates, through invisible threads of connection that your rational mind cannot track, but your aligned intuition can feel perfectly. The third principle of the flow state is frequency maintenance, and this is perhaps the most critical piece because it's the difference between a temporary influx of abundance and a sustained lifestyle of prosperity. Your frequency is the electromagnetic signature you're broadcasting into the quantum field, and it's determined by your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and physical state. When you're vibrating at the frequency of abundance, feeling grateful, expectant, worthy, generous, playful, you attract experiences that match that frequency. When you drop into the frequency of scarcity, feeling fearful, contracted, bitter, jealous, desperate, you attract experiences that match that instead. And here's the challenging part. Maintaining a high frequency requires vigilance because the world is constantly trying to pull you down. The news broadcasts fear, social media triggers comparison, people around you may unconsciously try to keep you at their level because your rising threatens their worldview. Your job is to protect your frequency like it's the most valuable resource you have, because it is. Frequency maintenance has both preventative and corrective aspects. Preventatively, you curate your environment to support high-frequency states. You limit exposure to negativity. You surround yourself with beauty. You consume content that uplifts and educates rather than depresses and enrages. You spend time with people who celebrate your success rather than undermine it. You develop daily practices that anchor you in abundance consciousness. Morning gratitude journaling, where you list everything you're thankful for, including things that haven't manifested yet. Visualization sessions, where you feel into the reality of your desires already fulfilled. Affirmations spoken with genuine emotion rather than rote repetition. Correctively, When you notice you've dropped into scarcity frequency, and you will notice because once you're aware of frequencies, you can feel the shift immediately, you have tools to bring yourself back. Sometimes it's as simple as putting on music that makes you feel powerful and dancing for 5 minutes. Sometimes it's calling a friend who reminds you of your magic. Sometimes it's taking a walk in nature and letting the trees show you what abundance looks like when it's not trying to be abundant, it just is. The fourth principle of the flow state is circulation. And this is the understanding that abundance is not meant to be hoarded, it's meant to move. Think of your financial life as a river. The healthiest river is one where water flows in and flows out constantly, remaining fresh and alive. A stagnant pond, where water comes in but never leaves, eventually becomes toxic. When you receive money and immediately grip it with fear, refusing to spend any of it because you're terrified it's the last you'll ever see, you're creating stagnation. But when you receive and then circulate, paying your bills with gratitude for what they provide, investing in your growth, supporting causes you believe in, treating yourself and others with generosity, you're telling the universe that you trust the flow, that you know more is coming, and that trust creates the conditions for more to actually come. This doesn't mean being reckless or spending beyond your means. It means finding the balance between responsible stewardship and generous circulation, and that balance point is different for everyone. I want to share something that might sound counterintuitive. One of the fastest ways to activate the flow state is to give from your current level of abundance, not from the level you're trying to reach. If you're waiting until you're wealthy to be generous, you're training your consciousness in the frequency of not yet, and not yet is a perpetual state that never arrives. But if you can find ways to be generous now, buying a stranger's coffee, tipping more than expected, donating even small amounts to causes that matter, offering your skills or time freely to someone who needs them, you're embodying the frequency of abundance right now, and the universe meets you at the frequency you're broadcasting, not the one you're aspiring to. This doesn't mean giving from an empty cup or martyring yourself. It means recognizing that even in scarcity, you have something to give. And the act of giving opens the channels of receiving in ways that hoarding never can. The fifth principle of the flow state is patience with divine timing. And this is where a lot of people lose the game right before they win it. You've done everything right, cleared obstacles, maintained your frequency, taken inspired action, stayed open to receiving, and then nothing happens. Days pass, weeks pass, maybe even months pass, and the evidence you're looking for isn't showing up in your bank account or your opportunities list. This is the ultimate test of faith, and it's where you have to trust something that goes against every fiber of your conditioned being. The universe is not late, it's precise. There are orchestrations happening behind the scenes that you cannot see, people being prepared to meet you, resources being arranged, timing being calibrated, so that when everything comes together, it comes together perfectly. Rushing this process, forcing outcomes out of desperation, or giving up right before the breakthrough are the three ways people abort their manifestations right before birth. The antidote is to surrender the timeline while maintaining the vision, to release attachment to how and when while staying committed to the what and why. Let me tell you what I've observed in my own life and in the lives of countless others who work with Ganesha's energy. There's almost always a lag time between obstacle removal and evidence of abundance appearing in physical form, and that lag time serves a purpose. It's giving you the opportunity to prove to yourself and to the universe that your commitment to abundance consciousness is not conditional on immediate results. It's testing whether you'll maintain your frequency in the void, whether you'll keep taking inspired action even when you can't see the path lighting up, whether you'll continue trusting Ganesha even when the logical mind says nothing is happening. And here's the beautiful secret. When you pass this test, when you maintain your alignment through the lag time, the abundance that finally arrives is usually exponentially greater than what you originally asked for, because your capacity to receive has expanded through the practice of patient trust. The lag time isn't punishment. It's preparation for bigger blessings than your smaller self could have imagined. The sixth and final principle of the flow state is celebration, and this is the practice of acknowledging every single win, no matter how small, as evidence that the flow is active in your life. Found a penny on the sidewalk? That's the universe showing you it knows where you are, and it's sending resources. Got a compliment from a stranger? That's the universe reflecting your rising value back to you. Received an unexpected refund or discount? That's the universe demonstrating that there are infinite ways for money to come to you. Most people are so fixated on the big manifestations that they completely overlook the small ones, and in doing so, they miss the opportunity to amplify the flow through gratitude and recognition. Every time you celebrate a small win, you're sending a signal that says, "Yes, I see you, universe. I acknowledge what you're sending, and I'm ready for more." And that signal acts like a homing beacon that attracts larger manifestations. So keep a wins journal, share your victories with trusted friends, do a little dance when synchronicities appear, and train your consciousness to see evidence of abundance everywhere. Because what you look for is what you find, and what you find is what multiplies. We've reached the sacred heart of this entire teaching, the piece that transforms everything else from interesting concepts into lived reality. And that piece is gratitude. But not gratitude as you've been taught it in pop spirituality circles, where it's reduced to a rote practice of listing things you're thankful for, while your heart remains closed and your mind remains skeptical. I'm talking about gratitude as an anchor, a living frequency that roots you in abundance consciousness so deeply that no external circumstance can shake you loose from it. This is gratitude as a revolutionary act, as a fierce declaration that you will not allow scarcity to colonize your consciousness, no matter what your bank account says, no matter what obstacles still remain, no matter how long the lag time between prayer and manifestation feels. And when you anchor yourself in this level of gratitude, specifically gratitude toward Ganesha for obstacles removed before you see physical evidence, you collapse timelines and accelerate manifestation in ways that seem to violate the laws of linear reality. Let me explain the quantum mechanics of why gratitude before evidence is so powerful, because once you understand the physics, it stops feeling like wishful thinking and starts feeling like the most logical strategy available. In the quantum field, all possibilities exist simultaneously. The timeline where you're wealthy, the timeline where you're broke, and every variation in between. Your consciousness is constantly collapsing these possibilities into singular reality based on your dominant frequency, your most consistent thoughts and emotions. When you practice gratitude for what you already have, you're collapsing the wave function into more of what I already have, which is fine, but it keeps you at your current level. When you practice gratitude for what you desire as if it's already yours, you're collapsing the wave function into the timeline where that desire is fulfilled, and you're doing it before the evidence appears in third-dimensional reality. This is not delusion. This is how time actually works at the quantum level, where past, present, and future are not sequential but simultaneous, and your consciousness determines which version of reality you experience. So when you thank Ganesha for removing obstacles before you see the physical evidence of their removal, you're not being naive or engaging in spiritual bypassing. You're operating from an advanced understanding of how reality construction works. You're saying to the universe, I trust the process so completely that I'm willing to feel the gratitude now, and my trust will pull the manifestation through the quantum field into physical form faster than doubt or waiting ever could. This is what the mystics mean when they talk about faith, not blind belief, but a willingness to align your frequency with the desired outcome before the outcome is visible, knowing that the alignment itself creates the visibility. And the reason this works exponentially better with Ganesha's energy than with other manifestation methods is because Ganesha is specifically designed to remove obstacles, which means when you thank him for obstacle removal, you're activating his exact function, and he responds with precision and power because you're speaking his language. Here's how to practice the gratitude anchor in a way that actually rewires your nervous system and shifts your electromagnetic field. Every single day, ideally at the same time so you build a neural pathway, you're going to write or speak aloud a gratitude list that has 3 distinct categories. Category 1 is present abundance. These are the things you currently have that many people would consider blessings: a roof over your head, food in your kitchen, functioning senses, people who care about you, skills and talents you've developed. Be specific and sensorial. Don't just say, "I'm grateful for my home." Say, "I'm grateful for the way morning light comes through my bedroom window, and the feeling of soft sheets against my skin, and the security of having a space that's mine." The more sensory detail you include, the more deeply the gratitude registers in your body, and it's the somatic registration that creates the frequency shift, not just the mental acknowledgement. Category 2 is obstacles removed. This is where you thank Ganesha specifically for the blocks that are dissolving right now, even if you can't see evidence yet. Thank you, Ganesha, for removing my fear of never having enough. Thank you for dissolving the ancestral pattern of financial struggle that I inherited. Thank you for clearing the energetic debris from past failures. Thank you for evicting the unworthiness that told me I didn't deserve wealth. Notice that all of these are stated in present or past tense, never future tense, because future tense keeps the outcome perpetually out of reach. You're thanking him as if it's already done, because in the quantum field, it is already done. It's just making its way through the layers of reality to reach your physical experience. And every time you speak these thanks, you're tuning your frequency to match the timeline where they're already true, which collapses that timeline into your current reality faster. Category 3 is incoming abundance. This is where you thank the universe, Ganesha, the divine, whatever language works for you, for the specific manifestations you're calling in, and again, you thank them as if they've already arrived. Thank you for the $10,000 that's on its way to me through channels I haven't even imagined yet. Thank you for the dream client who's going to find me this week and say yes without hesitation. Thank you for the opportunities that are lining up right now to increase my income by 50% in the next 90 days. Thank you for the financial freedom that allows me to make choices based on joy rather than fear. Feel into these statements as you speak them. Imagine how it will feel in your body when these things are real. Let the gratitude and excitement rise in your chest like a wave, and ride that wave for as long as you can hold it. That feeling is the frequency that manifests, not the words themselves. Now, I need to address something that trips people up with gratitude practice, and that's the question of, what do I do when I genuinely don't feel grateful? When I'm scared or angry or drowning in bills, and the suggestion to be thankful feels like toxic positivity that's asking me to deny my real experience? This is a valid concern, and here's my answer. You don't bypass the difficult emotions, you metabolize them first, and then you reach for gratitude. If you're in acute crisis, you just got an eviction notice, you lost your job, you're facing a financial emergency, your first responsibility is to let yourself feel the fear, the rage, the grief, whatever is present. Cry if you need to cry. Scream if you need to scream. Let the emotion move through your body so it doesn't get trapped in your tissues and create long-term blockages. But once you've felt the feeling fully, once it's moved through and you have a little bit of space, that's when you reach for gratitude, not to deny what's happening, but to anchor yourself in the truth that you are bigger than this circumstance. And this circumstance is temporary, and there are still gifts present even in the crisis. Sometimes gratitude during hard times looks like this. I'm terrified right now, and I'm also grateful that I have the emotional capacity to feel my fear rather than numbing it. I'm angry at how hard this is, and I'm also grateful that I have the strength to face it rather than collapsing. I don't know how I'm going to solve this problem, and I'm also grateful that I have people I can call for support and a spiritual practice that reminds me I'm not alone. This is mature gratitude, gratitude that doesn't deny shadow, but doesn't get consumed by it either. And this is the gratitude that actually builds resilience and opens doors because it's honest and embodied rather than performative and bypassing. Ganesha responds to authentic gratitude, not fake cheerfulness that's covering terror. He can handle your full human experience, the fear, the doubt, the frustration, as long as you're willing to also acknowledge the truth of your worthiness and the reality of his obstacle-removing power. Let me share a personal story that illustrates the power of gratitude as an anchor. There was a period in my life when I was so broke that I couldn't afford groceries, and I was too proud to ask for help, so I was eating rice and beans for every meal and pretending everything was fine. I'd been working with Ganesha's energy, doing the invocation, maintaining my practices, but the lag time between obstacle removal and physical manifestation felt endless, and I was starting to lose faith. One morning, I sat down to do my gratitude practice, and I was so angry I could barely speak, but I forced myself to start. Thank you, Ganesha, for removing my pride that won't let me ask for help. Thank you for showing me that my worthiness is not tied to my independence. Dun. And as I spoke those words, something cracked open in my chest and tears started flowing. And I realized I had been treating my struggle as a badge of honor rather than asking for the support that was available. Within 24 hours of that realization, I'm not exaggerating the timeline, 3 separate people reached out offering me work, and within a week, I had more income coming in than I'd had in months. Was it the gratitude that caused the shift? Or was it the emotional breakthrough the gratitude facilitated? Or was it Ganesha responding to my surrender? Probably all 3, because these forces don't operate separately. They work together in a symphony of transformation. The final piece I want to teach you about the gratitude anchor is the practice of gratitude amplification. And this is where you take your personal gratitude and expand it outward to include other people's wins. Jealousy and comparison are 2 of the fastest ways to block your own abundance, because when you resent someone else's success, you're telling the universe, I don't want that kind of success because look how badly I feel when I see it. But when you can genuinely celebrate other people's manifestations, your friend who just got a promotion, the stranger on social media who announced their business hit 6 figures, the person in your industry who just landed the client you wanted, you're telling the universe, yes, that's the frequency I want to match. Show me how to get there too. Every time you feel the pull of jealousy, you have a choice. Collapse into scarcity consciousness and make it about your lack. Or use it as information about what you desire and proof that it's possible. Then celebrate the person who's showing you what's available. Choose celebration every single time and watch how fast your own manifestations accelerate because you're removing the obstacle of competitive consciousness and replacing it with collaborative abundance. Everything we've explored so far, the invocation, the dissolution practice, the clarity codes, the flow state, the gratitude anchor, these are powerful tools, but tools are only useful when they're actually used. And this is where most people fail in their spiritual practice. They learn profound techniques. They feel inspired in the moment. They maybe try the practice once or twice, and then life gets busy. Motivation wanes, and the tools end up collecting dust in the back corners of their consciousness while they wonder why their financial situation hasn't changed. This chapter is about solving that problem permanently by creating a daily ritual that's so streamlined, so enjoyable, and so demonstrably effective that you'll actually want to do it every single day, and that consistency will compound into transformation that rewrites your entire financial reality over the next 3 to 6 months. Let me start by addressing the resistance that's probably already rising in your mind. I don't have time for another daily practice. My schedule is already packed. I can barely keep up with what I'm currently doing. I hear you, and I'm going to tell you something that might sound harsh, but is absolutely true. You don't have time not to do this practice. Every minute you spend maintaining scarcity consciousness, worrying about money, strategizing how to stretch what you have, recovering from financial stress, is time you're investing in perpetuating the exact problem you want to solve. The daily ritual I'm about to give you takes 15 to 20 minutes maximum, and those 15 minutes will generate more return on investment than hours of hustle from a contracted fear-based state. This is not about adding more to your plate. This is about replacing ineffective activity with laser-focused energy work that actually produces results. The structure of the daily ritual follows a specific sequence designed to move you through the complete cycle of obstacle removal and abundance activation within a single session. I've tested variations of this ritual for years, and this particular sequence is optimized for maximum impact with minimum time investment. You're going to do this ritual at the same time every day. I recommend first thing in the morning, before you check your phone or engage with any external input, because your consciousness is most malleable in that liminal space between sleep and full waking, and you want to program your frequency before the world has a chance to hijack it. But if mornings are genuinely impossible for you, evenings work too. The key is consistency of timing, so your subconscious starts anticipating the ritual and preparing for it, which amplifies its effectiveness. Here's the sequence step by step, and I want you to follow it precisely for at least 21 days before you start customizing, because these 21 days are about building the neural pathway and proving to yourself that the ritual works. And only after you have that foundation can you intelligently adapt it to your unique needs. Step 1 is grounding, which takes 60 seconds maximum. You sit in a comfortable position, close your eyes, and take 3 deep breaths while bringing your awareness fully into your body. Feel your sit bones on the chair. Feel the air entering your lungs. Feel your heartbeat. This grounds you in present moment awareness and takes you out of the mental loops that were probably running the moment you woke up. Without this grounding, the rest of the ritual happens in your head rather than your body, and head-based spirituality produces head-based results, which is to say, no results at all. Step 2 is invocation, and this is where you speak a condensed version of the Ganesha prayer we learned in Chapter 3. You don't need to recite the entire elaborate invocation every single day. That's for deep dive sessions. But you do need to call in his energy and state your intention clearly. Here's the condensed daily version, and speak it with conviction. Not like you're reading a grocery list. Ganesha, remover of all obstacles, I call upon your power now. I am ready for every barrier between me and my wealth to dissolve. Clear my path, open my eyes to opportunities, align me with divine supply. I trust your process. I receive your assistance, and I thank you in advance for the obstacles you're removing right now. Gam Ganapataye Namaha. That's it. 30 seconds, maybe 45 if you speak slowly, but packed with enough intention to activate his energy in your field for the entire day. Step 3 is visualization, and this is a streamlined version of the dissolution practice from Chapter 4. You're not going to journey to the temple every single morning, save that for your weekly deep practice, but you are going to spend 2 to 3 minutes seeing obstacles dissolve and abundance flow. Close your eyes and visualize your biggest current obstacle as a physical object. Maybe it's a brick wall representing your debt, or a locked door representing the job you can't seem to get, or chains representing the pattern that keeps you trapped. See Ganesha's golden light touching this obstacle and watch it dissolve, crumble, melt, or explode, whatever image comes to you. Then immediately replace that image with a vision of what you want instead. See money flowing into your account. See the contract being signed. See yourself living in the reality where this obstacle doesn't exist anymore. Make the vision vivid. Add sensory details, and most importantly, feel the emotion of it being real. The emotion is the signal that tells your subconscious this is important, this is what we're moving toward. Pay attention and start rearranging reality to match this vision. Step 4 is gratitude, and you already know from Chapter 7 why this is non-negotiable. Spend 3 to 5 minutes speaking or writing your 3-category gratitude list. Present abundance, obstacles removed, incoming manifestations. Don't phone this in. Don't repeat the same generic statements every day without feeling them. Stay fresh, stay specific. Let yourself feel the wave of genuine appreciation rising in your body. Some days, the gratitude will flow easily and you'll feel high from it. Other days, you'll have to work harder to access it because you're in a contracted state. And that's fine. The practice is even more important on those hard days because it's training your consciousness to find gratitude regardless of external circumstances. And that's the skill that makes you unshakable in the face of financial challenges. Step 2 is aligned action planning, and this is where the spiritual rubber meets the material road. You're going to ask yourself one question and then listen for the answer. What is one inspired action I can take today that will move me toward my financial goals? The key word here is inspired, not obligated, not forced, not what you think you should do based on some expert strategy. Inspired action has a quality of excitement and ease, even if it's challenging. It feels like a yes in your body rather than a heavy should. Maybe the answer is reach out to that person you've been thinking about. Maybe it's finally finish that proposal you've been avoiding. Maybe it's take a day off to rest because you've been pushing too hard and your creativity is depleted. Whatever the answer is, write it down and then commit to actually doing it before the day ends. This single inspired action per day, compounded over weeks and months, will produce more tangible results than endless hours of busy work that's not aligned with your highest guidance. Step 6 is frequency lock. And this is the practice that ensures your high-frequency state from the ritual doesn't immediately evaporate the moment you check your email and see a bill or encounter a person who's vibrating at scarcity. Before you end your ritual, you're going to choose an anchor, a physical gesture, a word, a breath pattern that will serve as a touchstone throughout your day to remind you of your aligned state. Maybe it's placing your hand on your heart and taking one deep breath. Maybe it's saying the word abundance silently to yourself. Maybe it's visualizing Ganesha's image for 3 seconds. The specific anchor doesn't matter. What matters is that you choose one. You practice it right now at the end of your ritual while you're still in the high-frequency state, and then you use it multiple times throughout the day whenever you notice you've dropped into worry or scarcity thinking. This anchor becomes a shortcut back to alignment, a way to course correct in real time without needing to stop everything and do a full ritual. Now let me address the predictable ways people sabotage their daily ritual, because awareness of these patterns will help you avoid them. Sabotage pattern. 1 is perfectionism. You miss one day, and instead of just starting again the next day, you decide you've failed. You might as well quit. The whole thing is ruined. This is your scarcity mind trying to protect you from hope by giving you an excuse to give up. The antidote is to decide right now that you will approach this ritual with self-compassion, that missing a day doesn't mean anything except you're human, and that you can always begin again. Sabotage pattern. 2 is outcome obsession. You do the ritual for 3 days, and then you start checking your bank account 17 times a day to see if it worked yet. And when you don't see immediate evidence, you conclude the ritual is useless. This is like planting a seed and digging it up every few hours to see if it's growing. The antidote is to detach from timeline, trust the process, and focus on the practice itself rather than the results, knowing that the results will come precisely when you stop strangling them with desperate need. Sabotage pattern. 3 is inconsistent timing. You do the ritual whenever you remember, sometimes morning, sometimes night, sometimes afternoon, and you wonder why you're not building momentum. Rituals derive their power partially from repetition at consistent times, because you're training your subconscious to anticipate the practice. You're working with your natural circadian rhythms, and you're creating a container that your consciousness learns to recognize as sacred. The antidote is to choose your time right now. What time tomorrow morning will you do this ritual? And then protect that time like it's the most important appointment of your day, because it is. Sabotage pattern. 4 is isolation. You keep your practice private, you don't tell anyone what you're doing, and when you inevitably hit a rough patch, you have no accountability or support to help you through it. The antidote is to find at least one person who understands energy work and tell them you're committing to this daily ritual, and ask them to check in with you weekly to see how it's going. That external accountability often makes the difference between a practice that fades and a practice that sticks. Let me share the science behind why daily ritual is so much more powerful than sporadic practice, because understanding the mechanism increases your commitment to the process. Every time you repeat the ritual, you're strengthening specific neural pathways in your brain, the pathways that associate Ganesha's energy with obstacle removal, the pathways that connect visualization with manifestation, the pathways that make gratitude your default response rather than complaint. Neuroscience shows us that it takes approximately 66 days of consistent repetition for a new behavior to become automatic, to move from something you have to consciously remember to do to something your brain does on autopilot. But even before you hit that 66-day mark, you're accumulating what I call energetic interest. Each day's practice builds on the previous days, creating momentum in the quantum field that makes manifestations arrive faster and with less resistance. There's also an energetic phenomenon that happens with daily ritual that doesn't happen with sporadic practice, and it has to do with what physicists call coherence. When you practice sporadically, your energy field is chaotic. Some days you're aligned with abundance, other days you're not, and the mixed signal creates mixed results. But when you practice daily, your field begins to cohere around a single dominant frequency, and that coherence makes you a much more powerful magnet because you're broadcasting a clear, consistent signal that the universe can respond to with matching clarity and consistency. Think of it like the difference between a light bulb and a laser. Both produce light, but the laser's coherent light can cut through steel because all the photons are aligned in the same direction. Your daily ritual is what transforms you from a light bulb into a laser when it comes to manifestation power. I want to close this chapter with a promise and a challenge. The promise is this: if you commit to the daily ritual exactly as I've outlined it for 90 consecutive days, your financial reality will change in ways you cannot currently predict, and probably in ways you wouldn't even think to ask for, because your current consciousness is still limited by what you believe is possible. I've seen this happen too many times to count. People who were buried in debt suddenly receive unexpected windfalls. People who couldn't find work suddenly get multiple offers. People who had been financially stuck for years suddenly break through to new levels of income. The mechanism is always the same: consistent alignment with Ganesha's obstacle-removing frequency plus inspired action equals manifestations that seem miraculous but are actually just the natural result of clear pathways. The challenge is this: are you willing to bet 90 days of 15-minute per day commitment on the possibility that your entire financial life could transform? Are you willing to choose consistency over convenience, discipline over distraction, and faith over familiar patterns? Because if you are, the path is clear, the tools are in your hands, and Ganesha is waiting for you to meet him at the temple every single morning. We've laid the groundwork, we've cleared the obstacles, we've established the daily practice, and now we arrive at the moment that everything else has been preparing you for, the abundance harvest, which is the phase where the wealth you've been calling in actually manifests in physical form, and you have to be ready, energetically, practically, and psychologically, to receive it without self-sabotage. This is where a lot of people stumble, because they've done all the inner work, but they haven't prepared for the outer reality of what happens when abundance actually shows up, and so they inadvertently block the very thing they've been praying for. This chapter is about making sure that doesn't happen to you, about ensuring that when your harvest arrives, you're ready to receive it fully, steward it wisely, and use it as fuel for even greater manifestations. The first thing you need to understand about the abundance harvest is that it rarely arrives in the exact form you expected, and if you're rigidly attached to a specific outcome, you might miss the actual abundance when it shows up in disguise. Maybe you've been praying for a specific job, and what arrives instead is a freelance opportunity that pays even better, but requires you to trust yourself in a new way. Maybe you've been visualizing a large sum of money from one source, and what arrives is smaller amounts from multiple unexpected sources that add up to more than you imagined. Maybe you've been focused on monetary wealth, and what arrives first is an opportunity that doesn't pay immediately, but positions you for exponential growth later. Your job is not to control how abundance shows up. Your job is to recognize it when it does, and say yes with your whole being, even when it doesn't match your mental picture of what you thought you wanted. The second principle of the abundance harvest is what I call radical readiness. And this is the practice of preparing for abundance on every level, physical, digital, mental, emotional, before it arrives, because the universe gives to those who demonstrate capacity to receive. Practically speaking, this means getting your financial infrastructure in order. Open that savings account you've been procrastinating on. Organize your records so you actually know what's coming in and going out. Set up systems for managing money so that when more arrives, you don't immediately hemorrhage it through chaos and disorganization. Clean out your wallet, clear the clutter from your workspace, create physical space in your home for the new things abundance will allow you to buy. I know this sounds mundane compared to the spiritual practices, but the spiritual and the material are not separate. They're two sides of the same coin, and if your material reality is in disarray, it signals to your subconscious that you're not ready for more. Radical readiness also means educating yourself about money management at whatever level is next for you. If you've never had significant wealth, you don't yet know how to manage it, and hoping you'll figure it out when it arrives is naive. Start learning now. Read books about financial literacy, listen to podcasts about investing, maybe even hire a financial advisor or coach who can help you create a plan for when your income increases. This isn't putting the cart before the horse. This is demonstrating to the universe that you're serious about stewardship, that you're not just asking for money so you can blow it on temporary pleasures and end up back where you started. The universe rewards those who show they can handle the resources they're given, and your willingness to educate yourself before the money arrives is a powerful signal that you're ready for more. The third aspect of the abundance harvest is discernment about what to do with the wealth when it starts flowing, because this is where a lot of people undo their manifestation through unconscious patterns that recreate scarcity. There's a phenomenon I've observed repeatedly. Someone who's been stuck financially finally breaks through, money starts coming in, and instead of using it strategically, they immediately spend it all trying to prove to themselves and others that they're not poor anymore. They upgrade their lifestyle before they've stabilized their income. They take on debt to buy things that signal success. They give money away to everyone who asks because they're so relieved to finally have some, and they want to be generous. And then 6 months later, they're back in scarcity, confused about what happened, not realizing they sabotaged themselves with the very patterns they were trying to escape. The antidote to this sabotage is what I call the abundance allocation strategy, and it's a framework for directing your harvest in ways that honor both your immediate needs and your long-term vision. When money comes in, whether it's a paycheck, a client payment, an unexpected gift, or a business profit, you're going to divide it into 4 categories before you spend a single dollar. Category 1 is gratitude and circulation, 10–15%. This is money you immediately give away or use to circulate abundance back into the world. Pay your tithes if that's part of your practice. Support a cause you believe in. Be generous with tips. Buy groceries for someone who needs them. This is how you keep the river flowing, how you signal to the universe that you trust more is coming, how you practice being wealthy in consciousness before you're wealthy in bank account. Category 2 is foundation building, 40–50%. This is money allocated for bills, necessities, debt repayment, and building your safety net. This is not sexy or exciting, but it's essential because financial stability is what gives you the freedom to take creative risks and make decisions from abundance rather than desperation. If you have debt, a portion of this category goes to paying it down strategically, usually highest interest first. If you don't have an emergency fund, a portion goes to building that until you have at least 3 to 6 months of expenses saved. This foundation is what prevents you from sliding back into scarcity the moment an unexpected expense arises. Category 3 is growth and expansion, 20–30%. This is money invested in your future, education, training, tools and resources that increase your earning capacity, savings for long-term goals, maybe even investment in assets that generate passive income if you're at that level. This category is about using your current abundance to create even more abundance, about being a wise steward who understands that money should work for you, not just sit in an account depreciating. Category 4 is joy and celebration, 10–20%. This is money you get to spend on pleasure, fun, beauty, things that make your life feel abundant right now. This category is essential because if you deprive yourself of all enjoyment in the name of being responsible, you'll eventually rebel and blow your whole budget, or you'll become so associated with deprivation that wealth feels punishing instead of liberating. Buy yourself flowers, go to a nice dinner, invest in an experience that feeds your soul. Upgrade one aspect of your life that will make you feel wealthy every time you interact with it. This is how you train your nervous system to associate money with joy rather than stress, which makes you a more magnetic attractor for more money. Now, these percentages are guidelines, not rigid rules, and they'll shift based on your current financial situation and goals. If you're buried in high-interest debt, you might allocate more to foundation and less to growth temporarily. If you're already stable and building toward a big goal, you might increase growth allocation. The point is to have a conscious strategy so that when money arrives, you're not making impulsive decisions based on whatever emotion is loudest. You're following a plan that serves your highest good. And here's the magic. When you start allocating intentionally, even small amounts of money begin to feel like abundance because you're wielding them with consciousness and purpose instead of letting them slip through your fingers in unconscious spending. The fifth principle of the abundance harvest is what I call impact awareness, and this is the practice of recognizing that your wealth is not just personal, it's relational and communal. The money you manifest doesn't just change your bank account. It changes your relationships, your family dynamics, your position in your community, and potentially the lives of people you'll never meet if you use your resources to support causes that matter. Some of these changes will be positive. You'll be able to help people you love, contribute to solutions for problems you care about, model a different relationship with money for the next generation. Some of these changes will be challenging. People who were comfortable with you being broke might resent your success. You might have to navigate requests for money from people who feel entitled to it. You might have to set boundaries you've never needed to set before. Impact awareness means preparing for these relational shifts before they happen so you're not caught off guard. Have conversations with your partner or family about how you'll handle increased income. Decide in advance how you'll respond to requests for financial help. Will you give freely? Will you offer to teach people what you learned? Will you set limits? Get clear on what you want your wealth to accomplish beyond just making your own life comfortable. Do you want to create jobs, fund scholarships, support artists, invest in your community's infrastructure? When you know your wealth has a purpose beyond personal consumption, it becomes easier to attract because you're not just manifesting for yourself. You're manifesting for the ripple effect your abundance will create in the world, and the universe loves to resource people who think in terms of contribution and legacy. Let me share one final piece about the abundance harvest that's crucial to understand. The first harvest is rarely the biggest harvest, and if you treat it like it is, you'll cap your own potential. When you first start seeing evidence that the obstacles are clearing and money is flowing, maybe you land your first big client, or you get an unexpected check, or you receive an opportunity you've been waiting for, there's a temptation to think, "This is it, I made it," and then relax back into old patterns because you assume the work is done. But manifestation is not a one-time event, it's an ongoing practice, and the first evidence of abundance is actually an invitation to double down on everything you've been doing, to increase your capacity, to raise your upper limit on what you're willing to receive. Think of the first harvest as proof of concept. It's the universe showing you that the methods work, that your alignment is real, that more is possible. Your job is to celebrate it, steward it well, and then immediately start preparing for the next level, which will be bigger than this one if you continue the practices that got you here. We've arrived at the culmination of this journey, but here's the truth that will either excite or terrify you, depending on how you receive it. This is not an ending, it's a beginning. Everything you've learned, the invocation, the dissolution practice, the clarity codes, the flow state, the gratitude anchor, the daily ritual, the abundance harvest. These are not temporary techniques you use until you get what you want and then discard. These are the foundational practices of a lifelong partnership with Ganesha, the obstacle destroyer. And if you approach this relationship with the commitment and reverence it deserves, there will be no ceiling on the abundance you can experience, no limit on the obstacles you can remove, no restriction on the miracles you can witness. This final chapter is about cementing that partnership, understanding what it means to walk with Ganesha for the rest of your life, and ensuring that the transformation you've initiated in these pages becomes permanent rather than temporary. Let's start with the nature of partnership itself, because most people get this wrong and it costs them everything. A partnership is not a transaction where you show up when you need something and disappear when things are going well. A partnership is a consistent relationship characterized by mutual respect, regular communication, and reciprocal benefit. With Ganesha, this means you don't just invoke him when you hit a financial obstacle and then forget he exists when money is flowing. You build a practice of acknowledgement, gratitude, and connection that continues regardless of your external circumstances, because the relationship itself is the foundation that allows continuous flow. Think about human relationships. The people you can count on in crisis are the ones you've invested in during good times, the ones you've shown up for consistently, the ones who know you're committed to the relationship beyond what they can do for you. Your relationship with Ganesha operates on the same principle. Practically speaking, the eternal partnership means you commit to a regular practice of connection that becomes as natural as breathing. Beyond the daily ritual we established in Chapter 8, you're going to create moments throughout your life where you acknowledge Ganesha's presence and thank him for his work. When you notice an obstacle dissolving, a difficult conversation that goes better than expected, a problem that solves itself mysteriously, a door opening that was previously locked, you pause for 3 seconds and silently say, "Thank you, Ganesha. I see you. I see your hand in this." Badi, when you're about to enter a challenging situation, a job interview, a difficult negotiation, a confrontation with someone who holds power over your finances, you take one breath and invoke his protection. Ganesha, walk with me into this room. Clear the obstacles I cannot see. Give me the words I need to speak. These micro-practices take almost no time, but they keep the connection alive, they reinforce the neural pathways, and they signal to both your subconscious and the spiritual realm that you're serious about this partnership. The second element of the eternal partnership is what I call sacred reciprocity. And this is the understanding that while Ganesha doesn't need anything from you, he's a divine consciousness, not a transactional deity demanding tribute, there is still value in offering something back as an expression of gratitude and respect. In traditional Hindu practice, devotees offer Ganesha specific items that hold symbolic significance. Modak sweets, red flowers, incense, fresh fruit. You can absolutely incorporate these offerings if they resonate with you, but sacred reciprocity can also take contemporary forms that match your lifestyle and resources. Maybe you create a small altar space in your home with an image of Ganesha, and once a week you sit there and speak to him about your life, your challenges, your gratitude. Maybe you donate to causes that align with removing obstacles for others. Organizations that provide financial literacy education, scholarships for underprivileged students, microloans for entrepreneurs. Maybe you commit to teaching what you've learned, becoming someone who helps others clear their own obstacles, effectively becoming Ganesha's hands in the physical world. The specific form of reciprocity matters less than the consciousness behind it. You're not trying to bribe a deity or earn favor through good behavior. You're acknowledging that energy exchange is how the universe maintains balance, and when you receive obstacle-clearing assistance that changes your life, offering something back, whether it's time, money, attention, or service, completes the circuit and keeps the energy flowing. I've noticed in my own life that periods when I'm actively giving back are periods when manifestations arrive faster and obstacles dissolve more easily. Not because I'm earning divine favor, but because I'm operating in alignment with universal laws of circulation. What you hoard stagnates. What you circulate multiplies. This is true for money, and it's equally true for spiritual energy. The third component of the eternal partnership is obstacle evolution awareness, and this is the recognition that as you grow and your life expands, you'll encounter new levels of obstacles that require new levels of partnership with Ganesha. The obstacles blocking someone who's trying to go from broke to stable are different from the obstacles blocking someone trying to go from stable to wealthy, which are different from the obstacles blocking someone trying to go from wealthy to legacy building. Each level has its own barriers, different fears, different limiting beliefs, different external resistances, and Ganesha's obstacle-removing power scales to meet you wherever you are. But you have to keep calling on him, keep doing the work, keep showing up to the partnership, even when the obstacles become more sophisticated and subtle. For example, when you're in survival mode, obstacles look like lack of money, lack of opportunities, lack of resources. These are obvious, tangible barriers that Ganesha can help you remove through the practices we've explored. But when you break through to stability or wealth, new obstacles emerge that are psychological and relational. Fear of visibility, discomfort with being the successful one in your family, guilt about having more than people you love, imposter syndrome that whispers you don't deserve what you've achieved, subtle self-sabotage patterns that prevent you from scaling to the next level. These obstacles require a more nuanced partnership with Ganesha, where you're not just asking him to remove external blocks, but to help you identify and dissolve internal ones that you can't see clearly because they're woven into your identity. This is why the eternal partnership matters. You're not just working with Ganesha to solve one problem and then graduating from his assistance. You're building a relationship that evolves as you evolve, that deepens as your consciousness expands, that becomes more sophisticated as your manifestations become more complex. The fourth element is what I call testimony and transmission, and this is the practice of sharing your journey with others in a way that honors both your growth and Ganesha's role in it. Now, I'm not suggesting you become an evangelist or force your beliefs on anyone who isn't interested. What I'm suggesting is that when appropriate, when people ask how you changed your financial situation, when someone is struggling with obstacles and seeking guidance, when you're in community with others who understand energy work, you tell the truth about what happened. You share that you were stuck, that you found these practices, that you committed to partnership with Ganesha, that obstacles dissolved and abundance flowed in ways you couldn't have orchestrated with your logical mind alone. Your testimony becomes transmission, meaning your story carries the frequency of what's possible and plants seeds in other people's consciousness that might sprout into their own transformation. But here's the crucial nuance. Effective testimony is humble and factual, not performative or spiritually superior. You're not bragging about how enlightened you are or how special your connection to Ganesha is. You're simply sharing your experience as data, saying, "This is what I tried, this is what happened, this is what I learned, and if any of it resonates with you, maybe it's worth exploring for yourself." The moment testimony becomes about elevating yourself rather than serving others, it loses its power and can actually create new obstacles in your own life, because spiritual ego is one of the most insidious blocks to continued growth. Share your wins, share your practices, share your gratitude for Ganesha's assistance, but do it from a place of groundedness and genuine desire to help, rather than a need to prove anything or be seen as someone who has all the answers. The fifth element of the eternal partnership is crisis resilience, and this is the understanding that even with all the practices, even with consistent partnership with Ganesha, you will still encounter difficult moments, setbacks, and challenges. The difference is that now you have a framework for meeting those challenges that doesn't involve collapsing into victim consciousness or abandoning everything you've learned. When crisis hits, and it will, because you're a human having a human experience in a dynamic universe, your first move is not panic, but invocation. You call Ganesha immediately. You remind yourself that obstacles are his specialty, and you ask for clarity about what this situation is teaching you and what action you need to take. Sometimes the crisis is actually an obstacle being removed in disguise. You lose a job that was draining your soul, so you're free to pursue something aligned. You experience a financial setback that forces you to release attachment to a specific outcome and open to something better. Crisis resilience also means having support systems in place before crisis arrives. This includes the practical, emergency funds, insurance, backup plans, and the relational people you can call who will remind you of your power when you forget. Communities that hold space for both struggle and transformation, mentors or coaches who can provide perspective when you're too close to the situation to see clearly. The eternal partnership with Ganesha doesn't eliminate the need for human support. It enhances your ability to attract and recognize the right support when you need it. And when you're in crisis, your daily ritual becomes even more important, not less. That's when you double down on the practices, when you show up to the temple every single day, even when it feels pointless, when you speak the invocation through tears because maintaining the connection is what will carry you through to the other side. Let me share something deeply personal that illustrates the power of the eternal partnership during crisis. Several years into my work with Ganesha, after experiencing consistent abundance and obstacle removal that had fundamentally changed my life, I faced a situation that threatened to destroy everything I'd built. A legal issue that came out of nowhere, involved people I trusted betraying me, and carried financial implications that were terrifying. My first response was panic, my second was rage, and my third was doubt. Did I imagine all of this? Was Ganesha's assistance real, or was I deluding myself? But then I remembered the partnership. I remembered the evidence I'd accumulated over years, and I made a choice. I went to my altar. I spoke to Ganesha with absolute honesty. I told him I was scared. I told him I didn't understand why this was happening. I told him I needed his help. And then I committed to showing up to the daily ritual every single morning, regardless of how I felt or what was happening in the legal situation. What happened over the next 6 months was nothing short of miraculous. Every time I thought the situation was spiraling beyond saving, a door would open. An attorney who worked on contingency when I couldn't afford to pay up front. Evidence that appeared mysteriously to support my case. Witnesses who came forward when I had given up hope. The obstacles that seemed insurmountable dissolved one by one, and the situation resolved in my favor in a way that my legal team told me was statistically unlikely. But here's what I learned that was more valuable than the resolution itself. The eternal partnership means you're never alone, even in the darkest valley, even when logic says there's no way forward, even when every external indicator suggests you should give up. Ganesha doesn't promise you'll never face obstacles. He promises he'll help you remove them when you call. And that promise has held true in my life without exception. The final element of the eternal partnership is legacy consciousness. And this is the shift from asking, what can Ganesha do for me, to what can we create together that serves something bigger than my personal comfort? When you've been in partnership for years, when you've experienced consistent obstacle removal and abundance flow, when you've built wealth and stability, the question naturally arises, what is this all for? And the answer that brings the most fulfillment, the answer that keeps the energy flowing at the highest levels, is that your wealth becomes a tool for removing obstacles for others. Maybe you use your resources to fund projects that align with your values. Maybe you mentor others who are where you used to be. Maybe you create employment opportunities that give people dignity and fair compensation. Maybe you simply live in such alignment with abundance consciousness that your presence in a room raises everyone's frequency and reminds them what's possible. Legacy consciousness doesn't require you to become a philanthropist or sacrifice your own well-being for others. It simply asks you to recognize that the obstacle-removing power you've accessed through Ganesha is not meant to terminate with you. It's meant to flow through you into the world, creating ripples of transformation that extend far beyond your individual life. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you start operating from legacy consciousness, when your manifestations are motivated not just by personal gain, but by desire to contribute and uplift, the abundance accelerates exponentially because you're aligned with the deepest currents of universal flow, which always move in the direction of evolution, growth, and collective well-being. Your individual prosperity becomes woven into collective prosperity, and that weaving creates a strength and sustainability that purely self-focused manifestation can never achieve. As we close this transmission, I want to leave you with one final practice that seals the eternal partnership and serves as your North Star whenever you feel lost, discouraged, or disconnected. Once a year, on a date that's significant to you, maybe your birthday, maybe the anniversary of when you first called upon Ganesha, maybe the start of a new year, you're going to create a sacred ceremony of renewal. You'll set aside several hours in a space that feels holy to you, and you'll review your journey over the past year. You'll document every obstacle that dissolved, every manifestation that arrived, Every moment you recognized Ganesha's hand in your life. You'll grieve what you lost and celebrate what you gained. You'll acknowledge where you fell off the practices and where you stayed committed. And then you'll speak a new commitment for the year ahead, telling Ganesha what you're ready to release, what you're ready to receive, and how you want to deepen the partnership. This annual renewal keeps the relationship alive, prevents complacency, and ensures that your practice evolves rather than becoming stagnant ritual. My prayer for you as you step forward from this moment is simple but profound. May you walk your path with absolute trust that obstacles are temporary and your partnership with the obstacle destroyer is eternal. May you manifest wealth that nourishes not just your bank account but your soul. May you remember in your darkest moments that Ganesha has never abandoned anyone who called upon him with sincerity, and you are no exception. May your abundance overflow into the lives of everyone you touch, creating ripples of prosperity that extend far beyond what your eyes can see. And may you always, always remember that you are not walking this path alone. You have an ancient, unstoppable force walking beside you, clearing obstacles before you even know they exist, opening doors you didn't know you were allowed to walk through, and whispering in the quiet moments, "Your wealth is inevitable. Your path is clear. Your time is now." Gam Ganapataye Namaha. And so it is. You've just received what took me years of study, practice, failure, breakthrough, and refinement to understand. These are not theoretical concepts. These are field-tested practices that have generated millions of dollars for people who committed to them, that have dissolved obstacles that seemed permanent, that have transformed financial desperation into sustainable abundance. The question now is not whether this works. I've given you the evidence, the framework, and the precise instructions. The question is whether you will actually implement what you've learned, or whether this will become another piece of inspiring content that you consume, feel good about for 48 hours, and then file away in the mental category of things I might try someday. I'm going to be direct with you one final time. Someday is the language of people who stay stuck forever. Today is the language of people who change their lives. If there is even 1% of you that resonates with anything you've read in this 5,000-word journey, I'm asking you to make a commitment right now. Not a vague intention, not a hopeful wish, but a concrete commitment. Choose one practice from this entire transmission. Maybe it's the daily ritual, maybe it's the invocation, maybe it's the gratitude anchor, and commit to doing that one practice every single day for the next 21 days. Write the commitment down. Tell someone about it. Set a reminder in your phone. Do whatever it takes to ensure that this doesn't become just another forgotten inspiration. And if you want to honor the energy that flowed through this transmission, if you want to complete the circuit and signal to the universe that you're serious about partnership with Ganesha, do this. Before you close this page, speak out loud 3 times. Ganesha, I am ready. Clear my path to riches. I commit to this partnership. Gam Ganapataye Namaha. The obstacles between you and your wealth are already crumbling. Can you feel it? Your clear path awaits. Walk it with power.